Cursed. Cursed. We all go a little mad sometimes.
There's a formula to it. A very simple formula.
I saw the boogeyman. I saw him outside.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Hey everybody, welcome into a brand new episode of Tomb of Terrors with me, Old Man Brad. Whether you are new to the show or returning for another episode, thank you so much for giving me a listen. If you love the show, drop me a review on your favorite podcast app or become a patron, patreon.com/oldmanbrad. And also make sure to follow me over on Letterboxd. Just look up Old Man Brad so you can see all the watches that I do. So we are in the second movie in this Year of Paul Naschy that I'm doing one Paul Naschy film each month throughout the year, plus additional ones over on Patreon. This is my first one with a guest. Last month you heard me talk about Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, kind of kicking things off. And we're going to continue on with the werewolf versus the vampire woman, but I couldn't do this one alone. I had to bring in a guest. I want to welcome in Bede from Bede versus the Living Dead, Tubi Tuesdays podcast, and so many others. How you doing today, Bede?
I'm good, thanks, Brad. How are you?
I am good. I'm excited to talk about this movie and hear what you think of it.
Indeed. Well, I'm looking forward to this as well because I will admit, Brad, Paul Naschy as an actor and a filmmaker, like he's one of those people who I've known of for many, many years. But it's only really in maybe the past 2 years or so I've only just finally gotten around to checking out some of his work. So far, I've only seen 3 of his films, this one included. So I'm definitely looking forward to kind of just talking about Paul Naschy because I have talked about him on my show, Bede versus the Living Dead, because he was in 2 horror films that were retitled as entries in the zombie series in some parts of the world, which were those films being The Hanging Woman, aka Beyond the Living Dead, and also Vengeance of the Zombies. So, but then this one in particular, which is the third one I've watched. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot to talk about with this one, so I'm looking forward to it.
When I started to get into more like Italian and I got into Spanish horror, it was the Blind Dead series that got me into Spanish horror. And then I just kind of went down this rabbit hole of like, oh, who is this? Oh my gosh, he's done over 100 movies. Like he's done so much that I got hooked in. And same with you, I've only seen a few of his films. So I just said, you know what? He's done so much. I'm really into the Spanish horror, the foreign horror. Let's just do it. Let's do a whole year of it. And I'm going to watch a bunch of his movies.
Well, and also, too, I do have a fondness for Spanish horror films. I think when it comes to international horror, I feel like when it comes to Spain or Mexico, I find some of their films to be very underrated and very much overlooked because you kind of watch a film like this one we're going to be talking about today, you can definitely see where it's kind of getting its inspirations from, but it has its own kind of unique vibe to it as well that makes it such an interesting one to watch.
Oh, absolutely. And there's some style in this, but that we'll dive into that. And like I said, we're going to talk the werewolf versus vampire woman, aka La Noche de Walpurgis. I think I said that right. It was also known as Shadow of the Vampire, Werewolf Shadow, many other names, just like what I find funny, like Italian horror, Spanish horror, just like that in general, especially like the 70s, 80s, how they're all renamed when they go other places. Whatever kind of fits the market that will get people to try to watch it. Like the one I talked about last month, Frankenstein's Bloody Terror. Frankenstein doesn't even show up in the movie at all. But they did it marketing purposes, so people are like, oh, what's this? I'm going to go watch this movie. Wait a second.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all. But luckily, in this case, though, there definitely was a werewolf and also a vampire woman as well.
And this is another of his Waldemar Daninsky films. He did 12 of them total. One of them is a lost film. He says it was done, but nobody's ever seen it. So this one was technically the 5th movie that he made with this character, although it was released before Fury of the Werewolf, which came out, which was considered the 4th one. So this whole release schedule and when things were filmed, like it's this weird kind of thing. And none of them connect. He just plays this character. This one kind of connects a bit to Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, but I'll get into that when we kind of talk about it. It's just interesting when you dive into foreign horror, just like the stories that go behind it, especially with him. Last year when I did my series on Bruno Mattei, it's just crazy. I love the stories behind how some of this stuff got made.
I'm definitely intrigued with this one as well, especially with this whole Waldemar Daninsky werewolf franchise, which again is one that I guess this would technically be so far the first and only film I've seen from the series, but sort of reading up about it and just seeing how it's kind of all over the place, and a lot of them are basically standalone entries that just feature the character in the lead role. And even sort of looking into doing my research on this film in particular, I didn't realize that one of the other films in the series, Night of the Werewolf, is actually a remake of this film.
You know what? I didn't come across that. And I'm doing Night of the Werewolf. I don't remember which month we're doing that one in, but it is going to be part of the series. So I'm sure I would have came up to it when I was researching that movie, but I didn't realize it for this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll be doing that film at some point in the future for one of my shows, because I do another show. It's a bit on hiatus at the moment, but it will be back later this year, called Bede and Sam versus the Video Nasties. And it was actually on the Video Nasties list in the UK. So I will be covering that in a future episode of that show. So I'm kind of curious, now that I know that it's a remake of this one, I'm even more curious, like, how different it is. Because based on what I've read, like, the reason why Naschy remade this film was because he wasn't entirely happy with the end result. Hence why he decided to do a remake of it.
This one was one of his most financially successful films out of all of his movies he did. And people basically kind of regard it as a kickstart for the Spanish horror boom in the 70s. It kind of that ramping off point from there, which I was like, interesting. You and I, we were messaging. We both have the Vinegar Syndrome release of it. And today I watched there's a documentary about him on it. I watched that, and it was kind of interesting, some of the backstory of him and his family and his upbringing and everything getting into film.
I mean, I didn't get a chance to watch the special features in time for this episode, but I just feel like with Paul Naschy, he's such an interesting guy.
Yeah.
In terms of his place in Spanish horror, because obviously to that country, he would be like their Vincent Price or their Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing. It's funny though, like, when it comes to, I guess, for us Western audiences, he's still relatively just unknown, or just more of a cult figure more than anything else. Because you don't really sort of hear people, when it comes to talking about well-known horror actors, you never really sort of hear people talk about Paul Naschy as much. And it's not to say that his work isn't as popular or influential. It's just he doesn't seem to be in the same conversation. Even like other well-known horror actors from other countries, even in Europe, seem to be more talked about than he is, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, and when I came across him, it was that like, oh, who's this? Oh my gosh, he's done so many. And it's like, he was considered the like Spanish Lon Chaney because of all the characters he did, as well as like his films are very Hammer-esque styled films, kind of around those same style of film as well, which was like, it is odd being someone who is in a horror space. And I know a lot of people who are, like I'm mentioning me, like, I'm doing this series this year, and they're like, I don't know who that is. I'm like, oh, you should look him up. He has a lot of films. Should we dive into it? You ready to dive into the werewolf versus vampire woman?
I am. I'm ready. Let's do this.
This is Wanda, queen of the vampires and Satan's favorite mistress. vampires will reign supreme, and things will happen that have never been seen by human beings. Your blood will boil and your flesh will crawl. No one can escape the vampires, and no one can run from the werewolf. If you can take it, see the most sensational fight to the finish ever filmed. See the werewolf versus the vampire woman.
Elvira and her friend Genevieve travel through the French countryside in search of the lost grave of a medieval vampire, Count Wandessa. This is directed by Leon Klimovsky, and it is written by Paul Naschy under his actual name, Jacinto Molina. Usually when he directed and wrote, he went under his real name, and then he used Paul Naschy for his, the stage name. And it stars Paul Naschy, Gabby Fuchs, Barbara Capel, and others. This came out, it was released in Spain in 1971, released in the United States in 1972. Like I said, it was his most financially successful film. I guess right off the top, just before we really dig into the movie, what were your initial thoughts on the film?
Well, I gotta say, I really enjoyed this one. Like, I watched it for the first time probably about 2 years back as part of Junesploitation, which is this event that This Movie does every year around June, where essentially every day they have like a different prompt for a topic that if you want to be a part of this month-long movie watch, you got to watch a specific exploitation film in this type of prompt. So it could be like a slasher film, zombie films, or films made by Canon. So this one year they had a Paul Naschy Day. So I was very excited about that. And I thought, you know what? I do have this film in my collection. I'll watch it on this particular day. And I gotta say, I really enjoy Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. I think it is a lot of fun. It definitely has its little issues here and there. But I think on its own for what it is, I think it is a pretty solid gothic horror film. I think I guess depending on which version of the film that you watch, because I think Spanish horror films kind of did something similar to what Italian cinema was doing at the time, where they would essentially shoot without sound and then they would just dub it in post in terms of either in Spanish or English. Because I kind of got the vibe when I saw both versions of this film, like even the Spanish version looks like it was dubbed over in post. What I really liked about this one, like I said, it has that sort of really strong gothic flavor. It definitely has a lot of Hammer vibes in it as well, but it also has its kind of own feel that makes it really interesting. And I think the characters are quite strong. The makeup and gore effects are pretty well handled. In terms of like the story itself, it is a bit disjointed, particularly in the sort of middle section, but I feel like it definitely is an entertaining film that even at times can be pretty creepy in terms, especially when Leon Klimovsky, and if I butchered your name, please forgive me, with the director of this film, like his use of slow motion.
Oh, yes.
Gives the scenes some of the scenes an otherworldly feeling, which I feel like adds to more of the creep factor. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I really dug this one a lot. And it makes me want to see more of Paul Naschy's films, particularly of this Waldemar Daninsky franchise, because I feel like having a taste of this one, even though I know it's like, I think the third or fourth entry in this series, I definitely want to check out more of this series and more of Naschy's work for sure.
I'm the same way. Well, obviously I'm doing a whole year of it now, but it was one of those that it started intriguing me. I watched one and was like, oh, I need to see more. And then this one, you said otherworldly. In my notes, I put down dreamlike because it was kind of in that same vein. It does jump around a little bit here and there. It's not, sometimes you're just like, hold on, wait, what? You're kind of jumbled, but like I enjoyed the werewolf. I enjoyed the gore of it. It is very Hammer-esque. I liked this story of this vampire as she turns one of them, and she is almost like an entity, almost like a ghost in a way sometimes, the way they have her kind of fading in and out of scenes. And I'm sitting there, I was like, this is odd, but I'm into it. I really like this. And I'm excited. It made me even more excited for the rest of this year of what I'm going to watch, what I'm going to see the rest of the way. I mean, and if any of them are kind of like this, I'm all in. This was just an enjoyable time. The disc, the vinegar one, I think it's funny because the 4K, it even says like it's the European nude version of the film. And like one of the other Blu-rays, you can watch the clothed version of the film to where the women aren't naked. And I was like, that's kind of funny. Like, I didn't watch that to see like how much different it was. It's like, we're going to do the scene with you naked and then cut. Hold on, put some clothes on. Let's run this scene again. I don't know if that's how it was or whatnot.
Yeah, well, I didn't get a chance to watch that version either. I'm kind of curious now because, like you say, it begins with that sort of disclaimer about the film, basically that this is the more nude cut of it. I was kind of curious, like, what the other version, like the non-nude version would be like. I mean, would it just use alternative takes or would they just cut out a lot of the nudity? But from the sounds of it, it seems like it's just basically essentially almost the same film, but just with retakes of them with still clothes on rather than having to be entirely naked. So I am kind of curious to see this version now.
Yeah, I'm the same. I didn't have time to watch it. And the clothed version is, I think it's like 7 or 8 minutes longer. So I don't know, maybe the alternate takes, they were just longer with them or what it is. But this movie, you kind of start out where you're kind of thrown into it. Here's this dead man who is Paul Naschy, and you're just like, wait a second. At first you're like, wait a second, did I miss something? When I was reading up on his Daninsky films, they're not supposed to be connected or anything. Each one is kind of its own thing. And then I'm like, hold on, should I have seen something before this? It does kind of connect with Frankenstein's Bloody Terror he does get shot at the end of it. And he does have, in that one, he has a mark, but it's more of a star shape than the one that starts off on his chest in this one. Almost like a square, but not quite. And the Wandessa vampire character actually there's a vampire in Frankenstein's Bloody Terror. So I had to look it up. I was like, wait a second, are they the same one? And they're both listed as Wandessa. And she dies. He kills her in that previous movie, but then she gets dug up. I mean, he stabs her. So there's a stake in her. So when they dug her up, I was like, oh, is this the same one? I'm looking it up. I don't think it's connected, but there's enough there where you're like, oh, wait, maybe it was. And just by happenstance, like I went from that movie and this was my next movie. I didn't do that on purpose to where I was like, oh, there's going to be connections between the two.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it's interesting watching this film without having seen the other films in the franchise, because I did know that with some of them, they were basically standalone. The way that this film in particular starts, where basically these two men, one of them being a mortician, and just go to the morgue and they find Daninsky on the slab. He's got a couple of bullets in him. Silver bullets, I should add.
Yes, they make sure they let you know that.
Yeah, so it kind of, the way it starts, though, it kind of just essentially feels like, oh, this is picking up right at the beginning of whatever movie was released prior. Then we're just seeing it like a few minutes later. And then once they actually get the bullets out of Daninsky, he comes back to life, becomes a werewolf, and he kills them. I think it's interesting how this movie kind of plays with the werewolf lore. Like, I don't know how accurate it all is, but I like the idea essentially, like, even when, because we all know that with werewolf films, if you get shot by a silver bullet and die, the werewolf curse is broken. But I like the fact that, if you take the bullets out of the person, they'll come back to life and still be a werewolf. So I thought that was a really kind of interesting and fun kind of way, because I can imagine, though, with this character. It's like all he wants to do is die.
He can't.
He can't. And everyone just like keeps taking either bullets or anything silver out of him. And then he just comes back to life and heads off on his next adventure, essentially.
Because they even made the comment about him being a werewolf. And they're like, well, we'll know for sure once we take the bullets out. And they take the bullets out and they were like, well, that proves that he's not. And it took a second. And then he wakes up, turns into his werewolf, and he kills him. And he runs into the woods of like his movements. Like he has the movements down. Like his werewolf, it has a certain way that he does it, where he kind of like hunches down like a creature. And I like the makeup that they use. The transformations. I mean, a lot of the transformations in these old movies is that like we put it on a little bit and then we kind of do this fade to the next one, a little bit more, fade to the next one, a little bit more. And for a movie, probably their budget, I don't think was very much, especially 70s Spain. It was a Spanish-German like co-production, but I'm sure like they weren't throwing money at him to be like, hey, make this big old werewolf movie, because he was known at this point, but it wasn't like, oh, this is gonna print money for us if you make another one.
It's kind of interesting with this film, like pretty much everything that I've read about it pretty much says like this is the film that kind of kickstart the Spanish horror boom. And also, since it was so successful, it made audiences all over the world just like look at Spain when it came to the horror genre and what they could bring. And it's understandable why, because like I said, it has that sort of Hammer of horror vibes. It has a bit of a Roger Corman vibe, this film, but also it's not afraid to be violent. It's not afraid to be sexually charged as well. Even sort of like looking at the specific kind of gore effects, like they're very well handled, but also just the makeup on Paul Naschy when he becomes the werewolf. Obviously inspired by the Lon Chaney Jr. look in The Wolfman, but there's something very creepy about it. And I kept trying to think, like, what makes his werewolf design very creepy? I think I kind of figured out what it was. I feel like it's because he drools a lot.
He drools a lot. Like it's just pouring out of his mouth.
It's like a little geyser coming out of his mouth whenever he's like going, and stuff like that. But even then, though, like when he does attack people, his mouth is always just full of blood, and it's like, again, dripping everywhere. And there's something very disturbing about that. And the movie just really goes full tilt with showing that to us as the audience. But even then, though, and also too, Paul Naschy definitely has a presence about him.
Yes.
Which I find very intriguing, because whenever he is on screen, you just can't take your eyes off him.
I mean, he's a good-looking man, but he's not like that typical movie star, like the big leading man that you would think of that time, of like, because he's stocky and he's a little bit shorter, but he commands the scenes when he comes in. He has a presence about him. Like when he walks in, you're like, all eyes on him. This is his scene. He's taking over.
I guess you could say like and pun intended, I might add, he has an animal magnetism about him.
Yeah.
I can definitely see why people are drawn to him, and also like why I guess the female characters in a lot of the films he is in are just immediately attracted to him. Like, I guess one of the things I think, if I had to pick some of the flaws I could think of in this movie, is that when Gabby Fuchs, who plays Elvira, not Elvira, Elvira.
She's named Elvira because that's his wife's name. He named the character after his wife, who, I mean, he was married to for many, 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 many years. So that's why she got the Elvira name.
So their relationship kind of just blossomed so quickly.
Yes, I did, because after this initial scene, when you have these two women coming, well, there's a scene where they're talking, all of a sudden they start talking about vampires. This woman and this man about, I need to go check this out, talking about this vampire. And then we see these two women pulling up to this big place. And this is where Paul Naschy comes out. And it is kind of like one of those, he comes out and they immediately like, oh, you can, it's one of those like, oh yeah, you could stay here kind of thing. And then she's very smitten with him. I'm like, wow, that was quick. I don't know if it's because, he's supposed to have like that suaveness about him. Maybe it's one of his werewolf powers. He can
maybe
seduce the women.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But even then, though, I think it's interesting with his character. And also what I find characters who are werewolves particularly interesting is that he is very tormented about his werewolf side.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, like a few times through the film, he needs to be chained up because he knows he can't control that side of it once he turns. And then there's a few times throughout the film where he turns and goes on the hunt and just randomly kills people in this small village. And I just had to laugh a little bit, is like this village is fully aware that this werewolf is running around the countryside, killing people, particularly young women. Even though they're kind of terrified of it, it's more like a daily occurrence to them, and nobody seems to be too bothered by it.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, we know about that kind of thing, and yeah, it's okay. You'd think they'd be trying to like hunt him down, lock him up, something if they knew that this was going on. But no, yeah, he's tormented by it, of like he needs to be chained up because he doesn't want to kill people, but he does end up killing some people. So I do want to kind of pivot just a bit. We've been talking about werewolves, but then there's also vampires in this movie. When they get to, these girls, they just want to find this vampire kind of tomb, and it's not really a tomb, and she's just kind of buried. It feels like just out in the middle of nowhere. They dig her up and then pull out a stake out of this dead body, and then, well, what happens? The girl gets cut across the arm and the blood splatters on the face of that skeleton. And you're like, uh-oh, we know what's coming next. She's coming back.
Definitely. Well, Patty Shepard, who played Countess Wandessa, I think she definitely has a very creepy look to her.
Oh, yeah.
I think she plays this role quite well. Like, you can definitely see, like, when the character Genevieve gets really enticed by her. I mean, to be fair, vampires do have the ability just to basically make anyone fall in love with them so they can be their victims. She definitely has this kind of presence about her as well that definitely makes her very intriguing on screen, and also the vampire fangs.
They're like really long.
Yeah, they're really long, but also they kind of look more like snake fangs more than anything else.
I didn't even think about that, but yes, they do.
And whenever she's on screen, like, they use a lot of the slow-mo with her to kind of give her that sort of otherworldly presence when she is featured throughout the film. But it's used really well. And also her costume design is also quite effective too. So yeah, she's just a really creepy vampire, and I think she does have a presence about her too.
Now that you say the snake, like her costume and the way she looks with the black, the way it drapes over her head, it's almost like a cobra, the way it kind of drapes out. And I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
Now it even, you say that and I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, she's even creepier than I thought before.
Although I think if she at some point turned into a snake, it would not surprise me at all, because she definitely has this vibe about her that I did find, like I said, really creepy. So, I mean, there have been a lot of creepy vampires in films, but when it comes to hers is very subtle. Like, there's something just unsettling about her performance whenever she's on screen.
I think some of it too is she doesn't have a ton of lines. A lot of it is just presence. Just kind of lurking in the shadows, in the darkness. Because when she turns Genevieve, it's almost, she's kind of her puppet for her, at least for a bit, until she gets killed.
Exactly.
And then we didn't talk about I guess it was, well, he calls it his sister, the crazy woman that breaks into the room at one point. And at first you're like, is she trying to seduce her, or is she like, you don't fully know what's going on with her, and she just kind of seems to come in for a brief moment, and then they kill her off when he turns in one of the times into a werewolf. And you're just like, oh. I think it kind of, at that point in that character, I was like, it was one of those head scratchers of like, why was she even in this? Like, really? She didn't fully need to be there, but.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing, because that character, who is Waldemar's sister, Elizabeth, you think for a while that, because basically she plays off as his werewolf version of a familiar, where she looks after him. But he's also looking after her as well, because obviously there's something very wrong with Elizabeth, especially in that scene when she does come into the girl's room one night and chats to Elvira and basically tries to choke her. Like, you think, okay, where is this film going with this character? But yeah, she gets killed off pretty early. And then, of course, Waldemar has to bury her. And of course, knowing that she was killed by Countess Wandessa, he has to basically stake her and cut off her head so she doesn't turn into a vampire.
Yeah, that's right. The werewolf doesn't kill her. The vampire kills her. And then, yes, you got that one mixed up.
And based on what I've sort of read, like, I don't think this character kind of features in any of the other films in the series, or at least the actor who played her, Yelena Samarina.
I know there are Elizabeth caricatures, but I don't think any of them connect. Like, I was looking through multiple of the movies today just to see Wandessa connects to, because Wandessa is the vampire in Frankenstein's Bloody Terror. But other than that, there really isn't. Looking at covers of some of hit movies after this, you see almost a vampire character with that veil over her head and everything. And I'm like, I wonder if she's supposed to be kind of like that recurring evil that he always kind of has to fight off, even though could be another character, could be another name, could be something. Even though they don't connect, they're still using kind of that similar look, at least from what I've seen looking at some of those movies that I'll be talking about eventually.
Well, I definitely look forward to your discussion on those ones, and particularly because, like I said, like, I've only seen like a small handful of Paul Naschy's films, but I do have like a couple of Blu-ray collections that feature a lot of his work. So he's definitely going to be an actor I'm going to have to do a deep dive into at some point, because I find him as an actor and as a presence very interesting, and also just how important he was for Spanish horror.
Yeah, I think anybody who is a fan of horror or just wants to dive deeper into the world, because like I said, in the last few years, it's really been diving into foreign horror, and particularly older, like 70s, 80s, some 60s, like older horror. And watching them now, I'm glad I came to it now in my life, because I appreciate it more than I would have, say, 10 years ago. But seeing the influences to some today, and just the styles compared to how the Italians made horror movies, how the Spanish made horror movies, and then, we all know the Hammer films and what was going on here. It's just a cool historical thing, and coming across an actor like this has been fantastic.
Oh, I imagine it would be.
One thing I put in my notes, did you notice, it's towards the beginning, the spider? Did you notice there was a string on the spider as they pulled it away?
I did notice that, because, I mean, you and I both, we have our 4K copies of this movie, and I watched it in that format as well. And I mean, as much as I do love 4K, some of the flaws in older films do stick out a little bit more.
Yes.
Due to the high definition.
Yes.
Because there'll be a couple of times where you'll see characters who have been murdered, either by Waldemar or Countess or Dendesta. And you can obviously see that their chests are slowly moving up and down. They're still just slightly breathing, so they're not fully dead, which I find very hilarious.
And it is one of those, when you get these movies converted to higher definition, I think my wife told me once, like Star Wars, for instance, she's like, I don't need to see every scratch in Darth Vader's helmet. Like, he was scarier and darker before I could see everything. I mean, I get it. Like, I'm curious, like you see the little string. If it wasn't in 4K, say I was watching on DVD, would it be as noticeable? Because things are kind of blurred a little bit. But overall, I know we didn't dive beat for beat through the movie. I kind of more have fun of a discussion of things that we liked, kind of going here and there of like, I like to jump around. I like to be random. Overall, how would you rate if you were giving it out of 5 stars, how would you rate Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman?
I would say it's about a 3.5 out of 5.
All right.
Kind of the main reasons why I don't give it a much higher rating. As much as there are a lot of aspects of this film I do really enjoy, I do think it does have some problems. I do think it's a bit disjointed in terms of its structure, because it kind of just jumps from one scene to the other. And I do think the middle section can have some slow spots at times as well, because it's really kind of more of the first half and then the last half kind of is where most of the action is. But it's really that sort of middle section where it kind of feels like it's kind of all over the place a little bit, or it kind of rushes or just jumps from one scene to another. So those were kind of like the big flaws I found with it. But also too, like if you have a movie, even though yes, this is a film that has multiple different titles, if you're going to have a movie called Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman, their final battle better be satisfying, and it just ends so quickly.
It does. It does. It was the same in the Frankenstein's Bloody Terror when he gets to fighting the vampires at the end of that one too. It's like, oh, that's all we get. It's like you quickly just relinquished them after all of this buildup. This dark person, you're like, oh, that's it. But I'm with you on that.
Yeah, so it kind of ends the movie on a little bit of an unsatisfying note. Not to say I wanted like a whole last half to be a major battle or anything, but it could have been good if it went on a little bit longer. For what it is, though, I still reckon it's a good film. It's got some pretty interesting characters. The makeup and gore effects are excellent. I love the creepy atmosphere that it has. And also, too, and I think this is definitely the most important thing, that it's made me very interested to check out the other films in this franchise. So, which I will definitely do in the future.
I'm with you on a lot of the same thoughts that you had. Like, it has a very strong beginning. And for the most part, a strong second half. The ending does kind of, oh, it's over. And in the middle, I mean, it's only an 87-minute movie. And in the middle, you kind of get a little lull. And you're like, I know, you do that gothic horror feel. Gothic horror are a slow burn, but I think mixing it with this werewolf, this bloody horror film, it doesn't always mesh. And I think the middle part is where you really feel it. But I give it a 3 out of 5. I enjoyed it. It's one of those that I'm like, I'm glad it's in my collection. I would probably watch it again just as one of those, you know what, I'm going to throw this on just for a fun, quick little werewolf film watch. I'm excited for the next one.
I mean, I'll have to go through, like, in chronological order, this whole series, even though, yes, a lot of them are standalone entries. But I feel like I don't want to just go back and forth between different ones. I feel like I need to start from the very beginning and just go through it in order.
And what I found funny is a lot of people were saying that this is a continuation of Fury of the Wolfman, which is the one that was filmed before this, but it was released, I think it was 2 years after this one.
Jeez.
But a lot of people say that I don't say a lot of people, but I think it was when they released it, they were saying it's a continuation of that. But then like critics and people who have, when this came out, said that it was more of a connection to Frankenstein's Bloody Terror than it is to Fury of the Wolfman, which I guess apparently in that one, he's a college teacher or something. And in this one and the previous one, he's kind of like, the count that has this castle in this place. So they're like, I don't know how he becomes this into this. But I'll be interested to see how they do the character from movie to movie of like, how he just kind of comes to be? Is it just like, oh, here he is. Here's Waldemar Daninsky. He's just around. Or like in this one, if the town is like, oh yeah, we know about the werewolf. We know things happen, but it is what it is. Okay, but you don't have to.
Definitely.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on to talk the werewolf versus this vampire woman. Before we finish things up, tell everybody where they can kind of follow along to you and what you have going on.
Well, if people want to find me personally out there on the internet, you can follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd under Bede Jermaine. You can find all my work and the many podcasts that I co-host as part of the Super Network on supermarcy.com, which I co-host with my bestie Super Marcy. And also, you can listen to all those shows on the Super Network and their individual podcast feeds on all podcast streamers everywhere. We have quite a few shows. I also host a solo podcast called Bede versus the Living Dead, which Brad, you were a guest on last year, which I was very happy about. That's a show where I dissect everything that's linked to the 1968 version of Night of the Living Dead. And also that show also has had its own kind of little network as well with other spin-off shows like I host with friends. I also co-host a horror trivia show called A Bloody Good Time, which is created by my friend Chad Suva. So every now and again I do host along with Super Marcy, and Chad is the main host of the show. And people can check that out on YouTube. And it's just basically a live horror trivia show. And Brad, you've been a contestant on that as well.
I have come on a couple times and lost.
Don't worry, I have a feeling you will win at some point. Everybody does. I can tell you that.
I've had a couple off days. That's all.
I have all faith in you in the future, Brad, when you come back next.
Well, thank you for watching a Paul Naschy movie, and you said you've sparked to want to watch some more. So I'll be curious to see what you think of the ones after this that you watched, to see how they kind of compare.
Definitely.
Before I head out, I want to tell you about 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. The horror sequel audiences and critics are raving about. 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple comes home. See why it is certified fresh and verified hot via Rotten Tomatoes. Get it on digital now. And I have a couple digital codes for 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. I'm going to be giving them away on my social media on Blue Sky and Instagram. Just look up Old Man Brad, both on Instagram and Blue Sky. I'll be posting about it here very soon of how you could win your own digital code for 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. I want to thank everybody for listening to this, the second in the year of Paul Naschy. Just make sure you subscribe to the show and you never miss anything that happens over here, whether it's my interviews, reviews, tales from Tubi, verses that I do with my wife, or cool series like this that I do through the whole year. I'll be back with more Paul Naschy next month when Brett from Dissect That Film comes on, and we're going to talk Dr. Jekyll and the Werewolf. Sensing the theme here, aren't we? He'll be on in March to talk that movie. I'm excited to check that one out. I've never seen it. But I'll be back soon. Just snuggle up in that blanket, turn off the lights, because it's okay to be scared. We'll talk to you later, everybody.